Great news for Keith Lee fans across the entire globe. It looks like he's finally coming back. I got all the latest developments regarding Keith Lee's return to a wrestling ring. All that and more on today's episode of Wrestling Absorber Radio. My name is Dan Frampton. Likes and subs, I know you got them. Give them to me. They're free, they're tasty, and they help me out. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Keith Lee. Keith Lee has been gone from our television screens for 2 years now. He left because there was like an undisclosed injury that he had to deal with. And when he was gone from AEW, he said, "Hey guys, I got this double surgery thing that I need to take care of." And we're like, okay, you do your thing. But 2 years is a hell of a hiatus, no matter who you are in the professional wrestling business. 2 years is an entire run for a lot of wrestlers out there. So what's the deal with Keith Lee? There seems to be this kind of pattern and nobody is getting it right with Keith Lee. The creative is never there. The injuries, however, are always there. They have been ever present in this man's career. Those are the two themes that this man has had to wrestle more than actual wrestlers in the wrestling business, okay? Injuries and bad booking have prevented this man from reaching the limitless potential of a Keith Lee. But now, according to F4W Online, Keith Lee responded to a fan on social media and reassured everybody that he is indeed coming back. We all forgot about Keith Lee. What's with Keith Lee? Where you been? And he's like, it's been stupid of you to forget about Keith Lee. Don't you know never to forget about me? That wasn't his actual quote. I'm saying that part. The actual quote is this: "You honor me. I appreciate you for that. All my gratitude. I'd like to take this moment to remind you that you also are boundless. Additionally, I'll take a moment to reassure you that a return to the ring will certainly happen, but I won't possess how or when. Much love." And anybody that's been a fan of Keith Lee just wants to see Keith Lee. This man has absolutely everything that you need to be at the top of a card in any wrestling organization. This guy can be a world champion for any booker, and I'm sure money would just keep getting printed. He's a big, beefy boy that can slap meat with the big, beefy boys out there, have these big hoss matches, but also, he can do the flippy doos and the flippy Ds, okay? He's a little bit of a somersault guy, but maybe not so much now after the double surgeries. But that's okay. That's the beautiful thing about a Keith Lee. Since he could do it all, if he needs to modify his move set or whatever, then he could just take out all the stuff that's high impact on the knees and all the stuff that like he shouldn't be doing anyway, you know? Just be a big man. As Diesel would say, work big, brother. But Keith Lee's been around for a long while. In 2015, he was in ROH. He wasn't really so much on my radar. I was out of the whole Ring of Honor thing by 2015. I was a little bit earlier to Ring of Honor, and Keith Lee wasn't around then. When Keith Lee got on my radar was around 2017 time when he was making noise for PWG. 2017 PWG is a whole other time and place. But in 2018, this guy got to show his brilliance to the bigger, grander world on NXT. And NXT at the time was on the WWE Network, and a bunch of people had the WWE Network and were watching NXT, and they were like, who's this Keith Lee guy? He's unreal. All of his excellent matches with Dijak, he ended up becoming the North American champion. Then while he was holding that championship, he beat Adam Cole for the world championship, and we're all like, this guy has everything. He's gonna do everything in the wrestling business. Nothing can stop this guy. Injured. And after that piece of business where he was double champ, that's where the good booking ended. It was all downhill for Keith Lee from here. In 2020, he makes his main roster debut in the Royal Rumble. He gets eliminated by Lesnar, and we're like, okay, maybe it's not going to be so bad for Keith Lee out here on the main roster. Gets moved over to Raw. Now he's on the main roster having matches with AJ Styles and Drew McIntyre, thinking, oh, this is going to be great for Keith Lee. Maybe everything, no, injured right away. This time the injury was COVID. And the peculiar thing about this COVID injury is that it lasted for months. Now I know COVID can last for a little bit. I had it back then too, but it lasted like 10 days, and 10 days is a long time. but months, Keith Lee? Either way, the trend of mysterious injuries continues. But now after a couple months go by, he gets better from COVID, he comes back, and Vince McMahon is still running the company, and he's like, you know what's gonna work? You know what is a good piece of business that's gonna get this guy to the top of the card? I'm gonna call him Bearcat. Bearcat! Needless to say, calling him Bearcat did not work out and he was released from his contract. But us Keith Lee fans were like, it's fine, it's gonna be okay. There's AEW out there, he's gonna be totally fine out there in AEW. AEW is basically just PWG with a bunch of money, right? They're gonna book him well over there. Well, he goes over there, he gets paired up with Swerve Strickland in this tag team. We're like, a tag team? No. Keith Lee is a singles guy. He's a top of the card guy. Why is he here in this weird tag team type thing with a future top of the card guy at the time? He's a top of the card guy now, but back then, Swerve was just another guy on the roster. But him and Keith Lee together, I will say, were a great tag team. When the split happened, it was like, okay, now these guys can work together and get to the top of the card together. After the tag team split, they split. There was no feud, there was no nothing. It fizzled out into nothingness. And everybody's like, give us that match. We want that match. And we're still waiting to this day for that Keith Lee Swerve Strickland match. We're never gonna get it, boys. And then from there, Keith Lee just keeps plummeting down the card, finding himself on the newfangled Ring of Honor, which is basically just the NXT for AEW. How has he fallen so far down the rung of professional wrestling? This is Keith fucking Lee. You had him in a tag team with Dustin Rhodes. What is going on? Anyway, injured, out, gone. Kaputski, 2023. Double surgery. Jesus Christ, Keith Lee, it's been over 10 years. We just want to see you at the top of a company where you belong. So that entire emotional roller coaster that all of us Keith Lee fans have gone on through his journey, he's now reassuring us that he's coming back. But will this time it be better? Will he get better booking? Will he just be paired up with a tag guy? Will he plummet down the card? Are the fans even gonna remember him? He is incredible at this whole professional wrestling thing, but 2 years is a long old time to be away. You're gonna have to come back and do something really, really big to kind of make that impact. And if this story that Keith Lee went through over the last 2 years is really emotional and was documented, well then that could really be a story to get into the hearts and minds of wrestling fans. I just really hope that that's the case, that this whole story can actually be told in a way that's going to lead to professional wrestling matches. Because you know, I like to watch professional wrestling matches, especially when there's a Keith Lee involved. So I don't want to point the fingers at any booker in particular. They've all dropped the ball. Vince McMahon dropped the ball when he was around in WWE. Tony Khan is currently dropping the ball. So I don't know what these guys are gonna do with Keith Lee. Do they know what they have on their hands? Apparently not. But now we've come to the fantasy booking portion of the video. What do I want to see Keith Lee do if he returns to the screen? Well, what I would love to see, but it will never happen, is if they put him in the front of the Hurt Syndicate. Yeah, that's right. Bobby Lashley and that other fella, Benjamin Shelton or whatever, that's Hulk Hogan called him. Put those dudes behind Keith Lee. Keith Lee as the forefront of that organization. Put him in a suit, make him a bad guy, and just have them wreck fools. That would be so fun. And then through all that wrecking of fools, of course, ends up with the World Championship. I see nothing but World Championship glory in this guy's eyes. And then give him a nice long reign, and by the time Will Ospreay is ready to make his return, have him win the championship in the UK for one of the biggest wrestling moments that they could possibly book. Now that, my friends, ladies and gentlemen, is fantasy booking at its finest. But I'm biased. I really enjoy Keith Lee. A lot more than a lot of wrestlers, I'll tell you that much for free. You know what else I'll tell you for free? Come join the live streams on my main channel. Dan Frampton, all one word, the O's a zero, links in the description. Hit me up. Come to the live streams, watch me play video games, listen to music, talk about wrestling, all sorts of stuff goes on down there. But mostly we just chill. Mostly we just kick back, listening to music and take requests. But having a couple more wrestling fans in the live stream certainly would be nice. Okay, goodbye. See you later. Have a good one.